Hey everybody, Mo here, and today I'm bringing you guys another Meta Monday. I'll be going over this last week and one of the most played decks on the ladder, and this is the week after the emergency patch, hotfix patch that Riot did. So for those of you that are unaware, last Tuesday, Riot did a emergency patch where they nerfed Poppy to the ground, they nerfed Yordle Explorer out of existence, and they basically made Kennen Ezreal not a deck anymore by nerfing Wayfinder and Godwillow Tree. The Poppy and Explorer nerfs were extremely huge. It basically took the mono Yordle rally style decks out of existence. They're definitely just not as powerful thanks to Poppy not just being this insane force to be reckoned with. They nerfed her all the way from being a 4-3 to a 2-3, which is still at 4 mana, by the way, so absolutely insane. So she is really hard to deal with. Really hard to play. She only works really in like Vandal Tree decks because everything in that deck still has 2 power or less, so she's fine there. But all the other archetypes that she was played in don't really exist. And the Kennen Ezreal deck, that deck is not being played anymore because of the Wayfinder nerf. The only reason Kennen Ezreal was being played was because you could play Wayfinder, get Kennen guaranteed, and you would just have like 3 leveled up Kennens in play on turn 4, and that would be broken, and you would just basically win the game on turn 4 or turn 5 because you would just have infinite removal spells for your opponent's units, and then you would have a leveled Ezreal on turn 4, turn 5, and it was just a mess. So, with that being said, there are new broken decks in the meta that are super fun, and we're going to go over with all the top 8 most played decks on the ladder since the hotfix happened. But before we get into that, I wanted to remind you guys that only 60% of the people that watch my videos are actually subscribed to me. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and click the subscribe button, and then go follow me over on Twitch as well. We're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by the start of the new year in 2022, so we can start off 2022 with a very strong base here on YouTube. So I think right now we're at like 4,400 subs, so we're about halfway to that 5,000 mark. If we don't hit it, all good, nothing to worry about. If we do hit it, that would be awesome, and it'd make the new year start off extremely great. So that's it for the intro. Let's get into the actual top 8. All right, so the top 8 most played decks this week. I'm gonna put a little asterisk there because we're gonna skip number 3 and play rate here, or number 2 and 3. They're technically tied, but we're gonna skip Kennen Ezreal because this deck was just so played last week that between last Monday and Tuesday and a little bit after that, it has so many matches played on it that it's still in the top up here played. So people aren't playing Kennen Ezreal. I literally cannot tell you the last time I played against Kennen Ezreal. I forgot it was even a deck. People instead switched to Kennen Ahri, and that's what they're on. They're on Kennen Ahri Shurima, Kennen Ahri Gohard. They're on Kennen Ahri with like a rally package down here. So everyone's on Kennen Ahri now because the Wayfinder nerf was definitely good at stop. I think that was like an amazing nerf. It stopped Kennen Ezreal from being the super dominant deck while keeping both Kennen and the Wayfinder, the Kinky Wayfinder, still playable cards, and showing here by the fact that the Kennen Ahri deck with Rally actually has the 2nd highest win rate in the game right now. So that's absolutely insane. The fact that the 2 cards, and Godwillow Tree, the fact that 2 cards in this deck got nerfed, the Godwillow Tree and the Wayfinder, they're both still being played a lot, and it literally has the 2nd highest win rate in the game, and they've hit rank 1 on multiple servers with different variants of the Kennen Ahri. That was an amazing change. Probably the best balance change Riot has made, if not ever, in a very, very long time. Yeah, so we'll skip over Kennen Ezreal and just skip down to the number 9 played deck here. So let's start getting into this. Number 1, Nami TF. So Nami TF is a deck made by Drizoth. He basically had this idea of like, what if I just put good cards in my deck and played them? And turns out playing good cards is good. Good cards are good. This exploded on ladder after he hit rank 1 with it with a very convincing win rate. This is very reminiscent of TF Fizz, old TF Fizz if you guys were around for that. That's what this deck reminds me a lot of. You get to play the Shelf Folk for the value late game. You get to play the Nami for the dumb, like, elusive mid-range stuff. And then every once in a while, you just, like, play for your TF win con where you just try and level your Twisted Fate and you kind of win the game there. So the deck is extremely strong. Drizoth hit rank 1 with it and then posted on his Twitter saying, like, hey, I don't know, like, I made this pile and it's working pretty well for me. And everyone started looking at it, and it was nuts. I remember the first day I saw it, he sent it to me. I literally titled it in my client, I hope this deck is bad, because if this deck was good, then it would be a nightmare to play against. It would be a nightmare meta to be in. Not actually like nightmare meta, but it would just be extremely frustrating to play against. The mirror matches would be really annoying if you had to play against a bunch of mirror matches. And yeah, so I titled it, I hope this deck would be bad, and I loaded up the deck and had a 75% win rate with it. And that's after throwing my first couple of games because I didn't know how to play the deck. So if you take into account, if I knew how to play the deck, I went back and watched the games, I would have won both of them. I would have had an 88% win rate on this deck. And my first time ever playing, like picking it up the first day. So yeah, it's pretty good. This deck is pretty good. It's the most played deck in the game. And again, like, to show how crazy this is, I don't think this deck has even been out for a week. I think this deck's been out for like 3 or 4 days, so only half a week. And in a half week's time, it's managed to be played for more games than something like GP Sejuani and Pantheon and Lee Sin, which are decks that people have been playing and practicing for since the patch came out, basically, if not longer. So yeah, absolutely crazy. #1 most played deck. So this is a deck you definitely want to look out for. Number 2 is Plunder. Nothing really too much to be said here. Plunder is still an extremely strong deck, really good deck. Very high win rate. It's still the best mid-range deck out there that beats other mid-range decks. So if we're in a big mid-range meta, the anti-mid-range deck is going to be Plunder because you have Sejuani that frostbites the entire field. You get to play frostbites. I guess this version is not playing it, but some versions play, you know, like a 1 of 3 sisters or 2 of 3 sisters, and you're able to play extra frostbites in there if your opponent does play things like single combat or any crazy shenanigans like that. It's really nice that you can flex into being an aggro deck with this GP Sejuani deck, so you can have these crazy aggro openers into this just like a big champion mid-game finish, or if you want to, you can kind of take it slower and just really focus on the Sejuani game plan against the mid-range style decks where you just go 1 for 1. With the other mid-range decks, you kind of trade up, get your Plunder triggers, and then boom, you slam a Sejuani, and now nobody can deal with it. Number 4 coming in here is Pantheon Taric. So don't get Pantheon Taric confused with Mono Pantheon. Pantheon Taric is definitely more of a traditional mid-range deck where you play a lot more units. You see here this deck is playing, I guess it doesn't give me the unit breakdown here, but let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, like 20. This deck is playing 20 champions, so it's definitely split 20 units, 20 spells. As more mid-range, you have a lot more targets. It's kind of more value with things like the Blinding Mystic, the Screeching Dragon. This is a very solid mid-range deck. It's very reminiscent of what Shin Jarvan used to be like. If you guys remember Shin Jarvan, this is basically just a new version of Shin Jarvan, or Shin Fiora, where you just play like, you know, decent, solid cards with like, or units with Challenger and other effects, and then you keep them alive with your champions or support effects and various amounts of spells. Again, don't get that confused with the Mono Pantheon deck, which we will be getting to here in a bit. Number 5 in play rate is going to be Lee Sin Zoe. So Lee Sin is kind of popping up because Minimorph is kind of not existent. If you see here in the most played decks, it's not even playing a Bastion. So there's actually no way to protect yourself from Minimorph in this current version, and the most played version or the most successful version. And I think that's due to a lot of these greedy decks being played. So like the Ahri Kennen decks are being played, the Nami TF deck. I know I showed you in this specific build, this guy's playing 3 Minimorph, but I know in Drizoth's version, he is not playing Minimorphs, and most people just copy Drizoth's version. Obviously, you can put in Minimorphs, but I think a lot of people opt not to. But yeah, that's why we see things like Pantheon doing well, GP Sejuani doing well still, the Mono Pantheon decks doing well, because a lot of people are skimming out on these Minimorph decks, because Minimorph is just not a very good card against aggro. If you look at the rest of the lineup, like Kennen Ahri is a very aggressive style deck. You don't want to be Minimorphing an elusive unit. You don't want to spend 6 mana to Minimorph your opponent's 2 mana champion. You turn their 2 mana 2/3 champion into a 3/3 for 6 mana. That is so bad for you that you might as well just concede at that point. And because Minimorph is such a polarizing card, they're actually getting to a point where it's really easy for people to see the downside to Minimorph. I've been saying this since Minimorph basically got released and got not leaked, but like got revealed, that Minimorph is not as good as people think it is. Minimorph is a very polarizing card that is one of those where it says if you're going on this all-in style deck or deck where you go all in on one unit or one champion, something like that, yeah, you're going to get punished really hard by a mini-morph. However, if you're not against a deck like that, and you're against just like a very solid mid-range deck or an aggro deck, mini-morph is horrible. It's a 6-mana, not even real removal spell, because it leaves your opponent with the 3/3. So if you're against an aggro deck, you can't mini-morph a Poppy. Like, if you mini-morph something like a Poppy, sure, they're just going to hit you with a 3/3. And Nami TF, you mini-morph a Nami, they're just going to hit you with the 3/3. You spent your entire turn to use 6 mana to make their champion a 3/3. So yeah, they don't get the Nami ability, but guess what? They're hitting you with the damn 3/3, and people just forget that this, like, tempo loss is a thing. They just forget that this making a 3/3 follower is a thing. They just think that it's, 6 mana vengeance at burst speed, which it's not. It's 6 mana vengeance at burst speed against decks like Mono Pantheon and Lee Sin Zoe, but there are very few decks that actually hard fold to mini-morph. But because mini-morph's not being played, that's why this Lee Sin's kind of popping up right now, and is being really dominant, as we can see here with a 58% win rate. That's really, really solid. Next in line is Thralls. Thralls, I believe, is going to be going way down in play rate. It was kind of spiked in play rate because Thralls beat Kennen Ezreal. And as we saw, Kennen Ezreal was super played here a while ago before the hotfix, and it's still up here in play rate, and Thralls is probably played just as much in order to beat all of the Kennen Ezreal decks. I think Thralls is probably still fine into all of the Kennen Ahri decks, because a lot of the Kennen Ahri decks are still really small units. For instance, if you look at this, for example, Blighted Ravine kills the Kennen, the Droplet, the Shadow Assassin, stuff like that, and Kennen Ahri, it's basically the same thing. It kills the Conspirators, the Droplets, the Shadow Assassins, the Kennen, stuff like that. So I think it's still okay deck, but it's definitely not nearly as good or going to be as played as it was when Kennen Ezreal was dominant. The next deck we have Kennen Ahri. I'm just going to sum this up as like Kennen Ahri piles, because they're all essentially the same. They just have a different splash. So if you look here, this is like Kennen Ahri with Absolver to give your champion, or to give your Ahri Overwhelm, basically. This is Kennen Ahri Go Hard. So it's just like Kennen Ahri with Go Hard and Scattering Pod. So you use Scattering Pod to search out a slow spell. So once you play the Go Hard or multiple Go Hards, you can find the Pack Your Bags with the Scattered Pod. And basically how this deck works is you just play your Go Hard, you use Ahri to just draw shit ton of cards with things like Thousand Tailed, Droplet, Shadow Assassin, so you cycle through your deck fairly quickly, find all of your Go Hards, get it to Pack Your Bags, play Scattering Pod, tutor out your Pack Your Bags because it's the only slow speed spell in your deck at that point. And then you just kind of win from there. And then the other Kennen Ahri variant that's being played is a deck with Rally, and this is what Gamebreaker used to hit rank 1 in EU. So it's same thing. You just play Kennen Ahri, very value elusive heavy. You play 9 Tails or 1000 Tails, and then you just play Golden Aegis to rally whenever you feel like you're really far ahead on board, either with elusives or your board's just really big thanks to the 1000 Tailed. Next, the last decks we have here is Mono Pantheon and Lurk. So Mono Pantheon, again, is a way different deck than the Pantheon Targ deck we saw up here. So Mono Pantheon is actually what Ruben used to hit rank 1, I think yesterday or the day before that, and he has an insane 75.5% win rate over 50 matches. That's absolutely crazy. And we see here, this version is pretty different. Instead of being 20 units and 20 spells like the Pantheon Targ version is, this version goes way more in on units. You effectively only have 3 units that you want to carry. You have the Saga Seeker because it has Faded, the Wounded White Flame that has Faded and Fury, and then the Pantheon. And outside of those, like, your only other units are Bright Steel Protector, which is used to protect those 3 units, and Mountain Goat, which is used to generate gems for those 3 units. And you're just kind of playing this Voltron style all in on my units. I'm going to make my 1 or, maybe 2, but most likely just 1 unit that I draw really fucking big. Give it things like Cataclysm. I'm going to play some rallies and make sure that I just kind of kill you with my leveled up huge Pantheon or kill you with my humongous like Wounded White Flame that has all the Faded triggers and all the Fury triggers. It's going to have the Overwhelm thanks to things like Zenith Blade, and it's just very much like a huge like Voltron style deck that could get punished by Minimorph, but like I said previously, because there's no Minimorph in the meta right now, these decks are going to be able to just kind of fly off the handles at will and do whatever it is they want to do during their games. And the last deck on this list, because we skipped Kennen Ezreal, is Lurk. So LoR kind of picked up in popularity again because fearsome is an amazing keyword against things like Zoe Nami. Just like in the meta right now in general, fearsome is really good, and going aggressive is really good. Look at all the other decks in this top 8. No fearsome blockers. This deck is actually really good, pretty good into it, because you have a decent amount of fearsome blockers. So that's like, you're going to be weak into the Taric Pantheon. But look, very few fearsome blockers. No fearsome blockers. No fearsome blockers. No fearsome blockers. This deck plays fearsome blockers, but because a lot of times you're just going like pass on turn 1, pass on turn 2, or you go pass on turn 1, play like a unit on turn 2, play a unit on turn 3, you'll be so far ahead with your lurk deck that it won't matter, because you're likely opening with like triple 1-drop. So if your opponent on Mono Pantheon doesn't have a 2-drop, they just go pass on turn 1, pass on turn 2, you now have triple 1-drop into whatever their turn 3 play is. If they do just play like a Brightsteel Protector Raw or a Mountain Goat on turn 2, you still have 2 other units in play that's going to be just gunning them down, and you're going to be extremely happy with how that comes out. And lurk is just way too fast to be dealt with right now, and that's why I think we're going to see a lot of, not a lot, but a few aggro decks, probably aggro fearsomes decks, kind of pop up, because fearsome is an insane keyword, which lurk is able to use, and then just being able to play like 9 1-drops is really, really strong. So I would like to see a 1-drop heavy aggro or burn style deck be played a little bit more. It'd probably do pretty well into what we see in the meta right now. And then Scouts. Scouts is not on here, but Scouts is nuts. Think about Stony Suppressor. All of these decks are spell-based decks. Nami TF, very obviously a spell-based deck. Mono Pantheon and Pantheon Taric, super heavy spell-based decks. Kennen Ari, look at how many spells this deck plays. Look at this. Look at all these spells. Like Lee Sin, obviously a very heavy spell-based deck. And Thralls is a spell-heavy deck, as well as it's a Freljord deck, so it just folds to things like Ranger's Resolve or a Rally, and you just kind of dominate the game. They don't have a good way to kill off Misfortune. They don't have a way to stop rallies. They don't have a good answer into things like a single Ranger's Resolve just absolutely destroys them. So yeah, Scouts is extremely being underplayed right now. Everyone always sleeps on Scouts, and I don't understand why, but Scouts is in an amazing spot thanks to half of the top played decks, or over half the top played decks being these like super spell heavy based decks, and the ones that aren't super spell heavy based just straight up can't remove your Misfortune. So even all the like Kennen Ari decks, on top of the fact that they are being spell-based decks, because like half of their decks are spells, they are in Ionia plus another random region that is not going to have removal spells, so they literally cannot remove your Misfortune outside of things like exactly Sonic Wave. But if you just have, most of the time it's just 1 Sharp Sight or 1 Ranger's Resolve, you just win the game at that point. So yeah, the game Scouts is in an extremely well-positioned place. That's what I used to hit Diamond with a few days ago. I did really well with Scouts hit Diamond. That's probably what I'll be playing for the near future, because 1, I just find Scouts extremely fun, and 2, I just want to like prove to everybody that Scouts is like in a really nuts position that everyone's just kind of sleeping on. So that's gonna be it for this Meta Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will have a link down to my power rankings for this ladder in the description of this video. Every week I put out an article that says this. What you're watching right now is just Meta Monday statistics, so that I show you the top 8 most played decks, and in my article I tell you what I think are the 8 strongest decks for ladder, which might not necessarily match up with what these are. Sometimes they match up, sometimes they line up, other times they don't, and I always throw in there a nice little surprise of like a kind of dark horse deck that I think would be really good, but it's being kind of slept on in the meta. So that's it for this Meta Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below if you do enjoy these Meta Mondays, or what type of content you want to see from me in the future. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, because we're really close to hitting that 5,000 subscriber mark, and we're trying to hit it before the start of the new year. Join my Discord, and link will be in the description down below, so you get notifications whenever I post article, go live, post video, all that type of stuff. Every notification you could ever want, you'll get it in my Discord. And then go follow me on Twitch, because I stream on there almost every single day, and we out there, we grinding on, we're on the content grind. So I really appreciate you guys. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.